Okay, that was weird. We're back. It's COMP228. It's week 3, lesson 3, part 5. And I'm not sure why we cut out 16 minutes in, but I was talking about a couple of things. I'm glad I updated. Hey, so here's the updates for those people who are watching, right? If you're watching, I've launched something called Concept Board, and I invite you to join me on Concept Board. This is another way of us communicating. Actually, I was doing this just in case we cut out, right? So check this out. If you go to app.conceptboard.com/board/2E5U-8H, this link right here. And by the way, I've also shared this link on Twitter, right? And of course, Ravina, yes, there is. I'm just going to respond. Sorry, cut out somehow. Sorry, cut out somehow. There you go. Restarting. Right, there we go. She's got that information, Ravina. Thank you, Ravina, and thank you, Tim, for that. But like I'm saying, go back to Concept Board here. If you go to Concept Board, you can take a look at joining me here, and I've shared my my board here on Twitter, right? Right. So here's my Twitter, and if you notice, also I'm also sharing myself, saying, "Hey, by the way, I'm broadcasting on YouTube in this other language, right? It looks like, if I'm not wrong, some kind of Hispanic language or Portuguese, right? All right. Let's close this up, and we'll go here to my Concept Board. So Concept Board is where I want you guys to join. If you guys can ask some questions, add your questions and all this kind of stuff. I don't know how that didn't record earlier, but here I am with live events. Looks like I'm still recording, right? Looks like I'm still going up here. Here I am, right? So my broadcast is still happening. I'm just checking myself. I apologize for a second. But if you guys check it out, I've got my Concept Board that's loaded for you guys to join to ask some questions. So please, if you're watching this now, join up. So at least I see you joined, and then I can talk to you guys about what's going on. So I was talking about, I guess I was talking to myself, which is a bad thing, but don't worry. We'll just continue and get this done. Okay, so what I was saying before I was interrupted, I guess, by this stuff is the idea of once we have our dice game here, right? Here's our dice game. And again, I'm not sure how many people missed that one. Here's our dice game, our roll dice method, right? And the roll dice method that I made, I actually put up on, I've shared with you on GitHub, so that's pretty cool, right? And here's my methods and arrays. So when I roll this thing, like I showed you last time, I can roll the number of dice. I've also defaulted it to a minimum of one die of 4 sides. So if I go 0 and 0, it's going to be 1 dice of 4 sides. I show you that. I'm not sure if you caught that piece. I'm not going to watch my video right now. And then it kind of went into this other case study down here in our PowerPoint presentation, which talks about the idea of craps, which is another type of game you can play with these 2 dice. 2 dice, each die has 6 faces, which contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? That's what it allows you to do. That's good. People are following me on Twitter now. If the sum is 7 or 11 on your first throw, you win. If the sum is 2, 3, or 12, we call craps, and you lose, and the house wins. If the sum is something else, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10 on the first throw, that sum becomes your point, and you need to match your point, meet your point, in order for you to win. If you get a 7 before you hit one of these numbers again, then you lose. And that's how the game of craps is basically played. Let's see if you guys have joined me on Concept Board. Somebody joined me on Concept Board. I don't think so far. So join me on Concept Board. Like I said, it's a great place for us to communicate with each other and ask your questions. And also, I can share some information here and remarks. Okay, so this is the way we can do that. I've shared my my link to Concept Board on Twitter, and you can find me on Twitter at Tsiliopoulos, at mylastname.com, or at Tsiliopoulos, sorry, and then you'll find that I've my Concept Board link is like a couple down, right? Right, so join me there. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint now. So that's what this does, and I went through without being interrupted, but this idea of an enum, and then enum is basically, I'm almost declaring a new type, a new data type, except my data type I've called it status. Think about it, I have three possibilities, three objects in my data type, continue, one, and lost. But actually what these things are is just a representation of the numbers 0, 1, and 2. That's what they are, right? 0, 1, and 2. That's what's happening there. And if I go through, I also have in here a bunch of other finals. And what are finals? Finals are constants, right? So I have one constant called snake eyes, which I assigned it to. Another constant called tray, which is 3. And again, that's kind of weird that it's like that, right? Let's see if I can respond to some of the stuff that's incoming. Bear with me while I adjust to people's following me on Twitter here, which is kind of weird. I'm not expecting that to happen. While I'm talking with you guys on this thing, it could be very instructive, right, to do this kind of thing all at the same time, huh? What do you think? Okay, so here we are, and so these constant variables down, snake eyes, 2, trays, 3, 7 is 7. These are just constant values that are human readable to make it more understandable of what when we call stuff. So when I call boxcars, it means is a 12. Snake eye is a 2. These are losses. 7 is a 7. Tray is a 3, which is also a loss. And yo 11, right? 11 is the 11, right? So 7, 11 wins in the beginning when you first throw, right? Here's my status, right? So I'm creating a status, this new variable that I made, this enum status, right? And the status is we're calling it game status. My point right now is 0 when we start off, which means we don't have a point to win or lose. If we roll a 7 or whatever, that's when we're going to start assigning things. We're going to switch the sum of the dice. So I roll the dice. Let's say I get a result of 7. If my case is 7, that's the equal to 7, which is 7 on the first roll, then game status is status.1, right? And then I break out of this switch, right? When I break out of the switch, and while my game status is equal to status.continue, which it's not right now, I'll do this, right? So I'm not going to do this because my status is status.1. I'm going to keep going down the thing. If my game status is equal to status.1, then system.out.println player wins. Otherwise, if it's something else other than continue, player loses. And then that's it. My player wins or player loses, depending on what I roll. Okay, let's go back. So I'm going to go back here. And let's say now, instead of rolling a 7, I rolled a 5. So I roll a 5. And I go down here, case 7 or 11, I won. Case snake eyes, tray, or boxcars, I would lose, right? It's not one of those, it's a 5. Otherwise, my status is continue, right? And my point is whatever the sum of the dice is. My point now is a 5. My point is 5. That's what it'll print out, my point, right? And now, while my game status is continue, which it is, because I just designed it here, right? The sum of the dice is equal to roll the dice. I roll the dice again, right? So I sum of the dice. Let's say I rolled a 6. If the sum of dice is equal to my point, status 1, else, and this is where I do it again, if my sum of the dice is 7, I lost, game status is lost. Otherwise, right, I do it again. I'm in that while loop, right? Here's my while loop. I roll again, and I keep rolling the dice until I either win or lose. Okay, so that's really the craps simulation. I'm not going to do that with you physically here because we've got to cover other things. But that's really how we use, the random number generator to generate that result. Okay, any questions around this? I'm going to go to concept board for the questions, right? And I've got some people joining me on Twitter here, so let's go onto concept board, right? Here's concept board. And anyone else have any questions? Again, you can certainly join me here. I've got my concept board active on here. If you guys have any questions around the random number generator or even any kind of thoughts, that's the way to go. I'm going to go answer my people on Twitter because I've got to kind of do more than one thing here, right? So let's see what I got because I want to basically make sure that someone who anyone who's asked me to join is allowed to join. You can follow me on Twitter. There we go. 10 followers. Yay. As you can tell, I'm not going to limit who follows me, but who cares? These are just all for you guys anyway, this stuff that I'm doing with Twitter, right? So here we go again. And then Tim, I've allowed you to follow me as well, right? So I've got a bunch of, some followers here that we got going on. And it's really all around us trying to connect to this kind of stuff here, okay? All right, so we're back. So let's go again. I would recommend, now that we're on, that you guys are, some people are joining me on Twitter, that you connect with me here on Concept Board to ask you questions. Okay, and again, you can do things like you go up on with shapes in Concept Board once you launch Concept Board. I don't think you have to sign up. You may have to. It's free to sign up. You click on shapes, and you can do that. You can also click on sticky note. And let's say I'm going to add another sticky note here. And if you notice, there's a color. I can make any color I want. Let's say the green sticky note. Add a sticky note here. And let's make it over here. It's green. And let's say this would be a new question. Here's a new question kind of thing, right? So you can ask a new question here. You can also make a comment. We can actually brainstorm here if you have something. And you can move these sticky notes around anywhere you like. And you can also delete these ones if they make no sense to you. So Concept Board, another way of communicating together. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So we've kind of covered some of these things here, this game of chance idea with introducing enums, which is kind of our own type. Right? One thing we can do in our Eclipse here is add in our own type for different things. For example, right now we've got a couple of defaults. We can't really. I've shown you that this doesn't make any sense because we're asking for input here, and you may have missed that when we disconnected somehow. But if I want to create an enum, and if I go back to my PowerPoint, right? So let's look and see what they did here for the enum. It's here inside my class. My class, I have a private enum, whatever I want it to call. This, when I say enum, it's just a new little my own data type that I can use within my context, whatever the context is. And the context of my class is what I'm doing. So here we go. So so this is one thing I could do in my game class. Here's my game class. And I could, as a instance variable, as an example, create an enum, right? Now, or could I? That's the question. So again, remember what I'm doing. I'm creating my enum, going back to my PowerPoint here, right? Here's my PowerPoint. I'm creating my enum, right? Here first, inside of my my craps class. Here's my craps class, right? And inside my main, my main class, I'm actually instantiating it to do my tests. So this enum then is a becomes the status, right? But it's game or craps.status. That's what I'm doing. And if you notice here, when I instantiate in my main, right, my status, I don't need to use the name of the class dot status. Let's see how that works for us, right? So how do I do an enum? So here I am. Let's do the kind of the same thing. I'll declare a public enum, right? And we're going to call this faces, right? So we're going to say faces. Okay, so here's my public enum of faces, and we're going to name the faces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's enough, I think. So let's say for the 6-sided die. So that's my private or my public enum faces. That's part of my game class. My game class. Do I have now access to this faces enumeration, right, that I can use inside of my main class? Can I use that? Can I say something like this? Can I go faces, then faces, right, is equal to a new face? I can't do that. Because look, if I go back to my PowerPoint, it's showing me here that my status, right, is either won or lost. That's inside of my driver. This is my driver in my main public static void main class, right? Remember up here, look what I'm doing. Inside my craps class, which is inside the same file, right? This is where I'm declaring my private enum status. I made it even public, it doesn't matter. Let's go back to this for a second. So private faces. Faces is equal to faces like this. Can I do that? If I look, if I hover over it, it says import faces as part of my game. Did I do that with this? Import Java security random? No. How come it's asking me to do that here? Because really what I want to do, right, is I want to do something like this, right? Game.faces, right? That's what I want to do, and I want to declare game.faces as a type that I want to use, right? Okay, let's try this again. Faces, I want to do my quick fix and see what it does. Input faces as a game, right? I'm going to import that, and then here's import game.faces, and then now it shows me another thing. It says faces cannot be resolved to a type, right? I've done this import game.faces, and it still doesn't do this. I can't create a class of faces, so I can't do that. So that doesn't do it, right? I'm just going with the example in the book so that way you guys can see what I'm doing, right? So let's take this out. This is part of my game. It's another file altogether. I'm going to take this out and save. Go back out here. And what if I wanted to create that here somehow? So I want to up here for my game. I'm going to kind of make my public enum faces, right? Here's my faces. And remember, I'm declaring a type. I'm declaring some variable here. And now let's see what let's get rid of this for a second. Let's see what the problem is if I do my enum here, right? It says the member enum faces can only be defined inside a top-level class or interface or in a static context. So public static then enum faces. Can I do that? Well, can't do that, right? So that's something that I can't do. And something else I've got a problem with, right? If you go to my PowerPoint, showing me the same kind of situation, private enum, that's in the class. So I could declare it in the class. It was a private member before, right? Did I miss anything? Let's go back to that class, right? Here's my class craps, right? And I've declared my private enum, which is only accessible within my class, right? And then somehow, in my second part here, I want to play the game of craps, right? And again, look what it goes to, from 1 to 19. Look at the wrapper. This public class craps is wrapping, right, my main method, right, public static void main, which means that what I'm actually doing here, right, this private static final private enum status, right, this private is inside my craps driver class. That's what this isn't a class of its own. It's my driver class, right? That's why I'm able to use the enum. But how can I use it in this context? So I want to declare it here as my own, faces enumeration, right? And can I move it around? Is that what I need to do? If I was going to move this to here, like above my main, can I do it here? The answer is yes. If I keep it inside my main method, I've got a problem. But if I put it outside my main method, then I'm good because now I've declared it as static. If I take the static away, but is it still accessible? It's an enumeration, of course it is, right? And if I go into my now in my main method, if I want to make a local variable based on the faces enumeration, right? I can do that. Now I can certainly do something like this: faces one, or we'll call this face. It's face.1 type of faces, right? Face.1, face.2, and I can test for it. I can say if number of faces is 6, if face 6, then I have a 6-sided die, right? Let's try this out. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say number of sides is what I'm going to say, right? So I say if, right, num sides is equal to double equal, right? Face dot, and if you notice, I'm going to kind of wait for what I can compare with. And then if I go 6, there's my 6, right? I can compare that. Then what? And if that's true, and now here's a problem that I'm getting. Num sides says incompatible operand. I'm trying to compare, right? Num sides, which is the number of sides, and face 6, right? How come I can't do this? Because I don't know what the value of face 6 is. Remember what face 6 is: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but it's 0 counting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at an array. I'm talking about arrays today. And if I was going to try and print this out for you guys so you can see what it is, I go system.out.println for my, I've created this faces thing. If I say face.6, here it is, I want to print that out. What is it that I get when I print it out and when I run this thing? Errors exist and require projects. Okay. Where's my error? It says exception in thread main, Java language error, unresolved compilation problem. So a compile error, right? And it says at or Java line 10. I'm going to go to line 10 here. And I have a game import game.faces. That's my leftover from the last attempt, right? We get rid of that. And here's my face.6, right? It says local variable face may not have been initialized. Oh, well, here's face, right? Face is face, just like we did over here, right? If you notice, go back over here, all right? There's my enum status, right? I got continue, won, and lost, right? And here's my game status is equal to something. I can make it equal. My game status is equal to of type status, right? Status is the thing, the capital status we're using, not the lowercase status, where game status is equal to this. So I can initialize it to something. That's how I use it. And that's what we would have to do, right? So again, we can say faces is face, right? Face is equal to something. And now we can say, well, my face is equal to something else. I can say something like this. I can initialize it. So here's where I'm initializing. Face, right, is equal to faces dot 6, right? That I can do. And now instead of choosing to print that out, I can print this out, this print line. That's what I can do, faces dot 6. This is the line here that basically assigns the value of the enumeration to our enumeration, the new variable that we've declared, right? Let's run it now. Okay, enter number of dice. Number of dice is 2, and number of sides is 6. So what do I get back? 6. Okay. So face then is equal to faces.6. Okay, and that's how the enumeration works. It looks like I return the value 6. That's what I'm getting when I print out face. Well, how do I compare then? What do I do to compare my enumeration, right? So here's my sum of dice, right? And again, I'm in my example here on the book, right? And I'm saying my game status is equal to status continue, right? Here's where I compare. I say, well, my game status is equal to status continues. It's almost like I'm setting it up, but I'm never comparing it between, I can't compare my status to a number because there isn't really a number. I've declared a new data type. My data type only has these values, continue, won, or lost, right? So I can't do, well, can I compare it to 6? Because 6 makes no difference. If I did this, so instead of making an enumeration, if I made static values and said, well, my 6 is equal to 2, or 6 is equal to 6, 3 is equal to 3, and so on, that's different. But that's not an enumeration, that's something else. In fact, that's closer to a struct, which we don't have right now. Okay, so does everyone understand? Hopefully, I'm asking the question out there, and you can join me on concept board to answer. Are you guys cool? And I see some people, yay, some people have actually joined me here on concept board. I got a couple people that have joined me. Is everyone cool with understanding enums? Because I'm going to move on now. right? And I know we're kind of running a little bit late because we crapped out of the initial session. So again, I'd ask you if you want to add a sticky note, you can go to sticky note here and add it in there. You can also draw freehand. You can also add a text message. You can click create or insert different files and so on. You can do all kinds of stuff in here, but if you want to send a message so everyone can see it, you can certainly do that. And you can kind of just click on sticky note. You can select a color if you like, let's say some other color like a blue. And I want to make a sticky note. Here's a sticky note. I can kind of add it in here and then start typing away, like add your own. I'm trying to encourage you guys to do this. Your own sticky note here. Sticky here. And you can also modify mine, by the way. If you don't like my sticky, you want to change this, go ahead. Go up there and change my sticky, right? So I don't see any questions, so I'm going to continue. But again, I encourage you to come and join Concept Board, and then from here, when we're in Concept Board, go through here and you can certainly modify your own, add your own information in here, add some questions, add some suggestions, and all that kind of stuff. So that way we can make it more of an interactive session, because I can't hear you, right? And if we go down again, you can also say, hey, Tom, you went down, right? And we can continue doing this stuff. All right, let's go back. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So we've kind of hashed this one to death. About enums. They're very useful if you want to compare things like a status or have certain things. Constants are very useful as well. Okay, we're going to kind of move forward when we talk about enum types, right? And how to use them. Again, it's the simplest, like it says here, the simplest form declares a set of constants represented by identifiers. And we kind of make them, the identifiers have to be unique. And then, of course, they're like constants, but it allows us to make the code human readable. All right. How about scope? I know you guys, we talked about scope before in terms of our scope rule. Basically, wherever you declare the variable creates our context or our scope for where the variable lives and dies. If you think about it, it's almost like the life cycle of the variable, right? So when we talk scope, we're saying, well, if I declare it at the class level, it's available to anything in the class, right? Any method or inside the class itself. If I make it inside the method, it's only available in that method. If I declare it in the constructor, it's only available in the constructor because it's just the constructor method. It's a local variable, right? Global variables, again, we want to avoid, and usually we don't have them as much in Java or in C# or object-oriented languages like that because they are discouraged to be created. We'd have to create them right inside the driver level, and then use them as static variables. Like, for example, that enum we just created. If I go back to here, to Eclipse, and if you notice here that in my driver, this driver program here that I've created my this enum faces. Now, can I access this enum faces in my game? Well, let's see if I can, right? So I can make a, I use my faces enum, right, and create a new private face variable. So I could say private then faces, which is of type face, right? I can create that. And if that's true, let me take a look what it says. It says import faces, methods, and arrays. Well, why would I do that? We're in the same thing. So I know it detects where this faces is. How about if I make this public enum, it's public static. If I do this, because remember, I have to make it, in order for it to be available everywhere, I have to make it here. Let's refresh everything and see what it says here. It says, it says to still make it import, right? And then, or create the enum faces, right? Detects that this is what's happening here. Add type parameter faces, right, to game. Let's see what I do there. I mean, that's kind of passing. I don't want to do that. That's kind of weird. And the type parameter is not what I want to pass in, but it seems still that faces as an enum, even though it's available here as a static, is not available as part of my, as a variable that I can use. I can't declare this type faces. So what other options do I have? I could declare another class called faces that has a bunch of constants, you know, that have different dice faces, you know, 1, 2, 3, so and so on. That's like an enum, but it doesn't really do what an enum does, right? So what's the scope then of this faces enum? Well, seems to mean that it's just inside this static class in this context, because I'm declaring this here, public static enum faces, as part of this methods and arrays class. Okay, so it's not available because I'm not instantiating this class. It's not available. It doesn't pass through into my game. Now, what if I passed my faces enum somehow into my game? Then would it be available? And chances are, if I try to do something like that, yes, it would. But it kind of defeats the purpose of what we're doing. Okay, let's continue. So scope, again, there's different scopes. We learned that from C#. We're not going to go too much into scope. Once you declare a method, or a variable here, here's a private method, and our access modifier here makes this, that also changes the scope of our variable. Access modifiers make it so that private variables are only available within the class, public outside the class, and there are other access modifiers we can see later on. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much about that. We've kind of talked about that. Method overloading is very similar to C# in that when you look at a method, so here's our class method overload, and we create a class or a method of square, right? So here's our first method signature, right? Here we're sending in a value of 7 or 7.5. Hold on, 7.5, well, that is a float or some kind of decimal number, and this is an integer. Well, why? Because there's a second method signature down here, actually it's a double, that takes either a double, that's one method signature, or an integer. We just declare the method again with the same name. And this is the exact same way we do things pretty much in C# or in other languages. Okay, so overloading, when we overload, all we're doing is creating another signature with a different type of parameter that we're listening for, as opposed to just the one. Okay, shifting back to concept board. I'm testing the sticky notes. No one's sending my sticky notes. Send me a darn sticky note so I know you guys are listening. I know that you guys are logged in here, but I don't see anything happening. You can interact with me live on concept board. So this is a great way of doing things. I'm testing this new thing out so that way we can communicate. So somebody create a useless sticky note for me, would you? Oh, yeah, it works. Oh, there we go. Just checking. Someone did access it. It was just not big enough for me to see it. That's just silly. So there it is. I can zoom in and out if you want, and I can move your sticky note around. Now that I have it, I can go, ooh, hey, there it is. I can collect my sticky note everywhere. Okay, that's good. Let's go back. All right, so that really is the end of this one, distinguishing between overloaded methods. How do we do that? It's the signatures. You know, and again, when we say signatures, the types of parameters that are being passed. And again, it's not the return value. The return value basically stays the same. It's the signature, the method signatures themselves. So that really is the end of this one. That's kind of advanced methods, if you will, that we covered. In a nutshell, we skipped some stuff that you guys should already know from C# because we're, you know, from a time perspective. Okay. Oh, someone's doing something there. Let's get, oh, and someone else. Hey, there's another sticky note that's coming up online. This is good. This is some good communication we're using for these sticky notes that were, oh, someone's gone. I'm going to kick off the next one, but I'm going to put it up. Let me go to this next one here. And right now we're sitting at 8:13. I'd like to start the next one, but I think I definitely need a break. I've been going for about an hour, even though online here it kind of, you know, started and stopped for whatever reason. Not sure why. I lost connectivity. Who knows? You know, funny things happen when you're live. I like to take a short break, let's say 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm going to post that on concept board here for people who are, because you guys are slightly behind. I vote for in class from now on. Online class sucks. I agree. I know it's kind of slow, and again, it's let's see if anyone else has any votes. Sticky note. Here's a sticky note. And we're going to say this. We're going to say, I'm going to go on break. Going on break. And we'll say it's going to be for 10 minutes. And for whoever, I can't tell who put the sticky note up. This is, you know, whoever did this it's your thing. But if this is definitely, I don't want to see anyone upset, right? So, or if it's not working, we can certainly go back and we can fix this later on. But again, you can see I'm going to go and break for 10 minutes, and we'll talk about it afterwards. If there's something that doesn't work, I could certainly stay I mean, I'm here for you guys if this isn't working properly. Okay, so I'm gonna take 10 minutes. You can certainly put up your questions while we're online or any kind of comments you want to have. And what I'll do is I'll do an online poll. I like to have this kind of anonymous input from people that are joining me, so that way we can ensure that everybody's happy or remains happy. Okay. So I'm going to put it on pause right now, and then I'll come back in about 10 minutes. So we're looking at, my time is 8:15 while I'm recording. So 8:25 we'll come back and continue.